We're up to 50, more than 50 subscribers on YouTube. So are we like YouTube famous now?
I guess so. Wow, look at us.
We're like official YouTubers. And we just hit over 500 downloads across all of our platforms. So we're like legit podcasters now. This is
That's pretty
crazy.
cool.
It goes 500 and then it goes like a million in like 2 months, right? That's how these things go.
Fingers crossed. Welcome to Sillage and Sorcery, a podcast where perfumery and witchcraft entwine like smoke and shadow.
That's dark and spooky.
I'm one of your hosts, B. Sampson from Venus Invictus, and I'm with my co-host.
Melissa Sifjardóttir of Sif Sniff.
And today we're summoning one of my absolute favorite materials to work with, benzoin.
I love how it's summoning. Yes.
Yeah, I try to write my script extra witchy for this one. I think incense and like resins are very, anytime I think of a resin, I think of the occult. And I'm like, they go hand in hand for me.
You don't think of gigantic environmental disasters?
What? No, I cannot wait to hear all about this. What the hell? So if you've fallen under the spell of a perfume that feels like vanilla dipped in liquid gold, or a resinous scent that lingers like a sacred incense long after you've left the room, chances are you've met benzoin. But it isn't just some sweet background note, it's alchemy. It's a bridge between ancient temple rites and modern perfumery, between healing magic and seductive sillage. So let's unravel its mysteries. I'm so corny.
No, I'm here for every piece of it. This is why people sign up. It's because not only are we perfume, but we're also spooky perfume.
Spooky perfume. So benzoin's story begins in the jungles of Southeast Asia, where the styrex tree weeps its fragrant resin when wounded. The name benzoin comes from the Arabic lubanjawi, which translates to frankincense of Java, which European traders mangled into benzoin, and that's how we get benzoin. But long before perfumers have adopted it for use in perfumery, benzoin was sacred in Thailand as it was burned in rituals for protection. Medieval monks used pomanders to ward off the plague with benzoin. And in Victorian apothecaries, it was tinctured into friar's balsam, which was a healing salve for wounds. And benzoin's magic? It's preservation, baby. It's a natural fixative. Slowly evaporation makes the scent linger, which is why it's the secret backbone of so many amber and gourmand perfumes. Question for you. What's your favorite benzoin fragrance?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, possibly Shalimar, to be honest.
Ooh.
I mean, but probably Shalimar. Shalimar hits different.
Yeah. I would say mine is probably Marrakesh by Aesop. It is like very ambery, temple incensey. It smells like benzoin and laudanum. Like it's very like golden amber. It's very good. I love it.
And both of them kind of appeal to what we were talking about in our racism episode between Marrakesh, the name, and Shalimar, the name. This idea of co-opting.
Yep. The Oriental East. Right. So let's kind of go into the chemistry behind it. So benzoin resin is a cocktail of benzoic acid, vanillin, and coniferol benzoate. The vanillin is why it smells like gourmand. It's warm, sweet, almost edible. But the coniferol benzoate, that's where the smoky, leathery depth comes in. And here's a little witchy warning for those that are listening. Raw benzoin contains styrene, which can irritate the skin. That's why us as perfumers, we often use benzoin Siam, which is a purified, sweeter resin from Thailand. Or we use synthetic alternatives like benzoyl benzoate. But when perfumers do harness the real benzoin, sorcery happens, baby. Blend it with vanilla and it becomes a skin-like elixir. Pair it with laudanum and you get Shalimar's molten amber. Or add a drop of rose and suddenly it's not just a flower, it's a love potion. Benzoin is, it's one of those ingredients where it's like, it's that fixative, dark richness, almost like, it kind of reminds me of like sweet tea from the South, where it's just, it's classic.
The person from Florida has a hardcore take on sweet tea.
Listen, I love sweet tea.
That's okay. I'm from New York. Pizza. If you do pizza dirty, I will tell you that you did pizza dirty. Looking at you, Domino's and Little Caesars.
Is this where I tell you that I really love deep dish pizza from Chicago?
I'm sorry. I didn't know that the podcast was going to end like this. You know, with like this, just this fight that like I can't even look at you anymore. That is a pie. That is not a pizza. That is a pie.
The
Okay?
pizza apocalypse over here on Sillage and Sorcery. We should make a pizza perfume.
There is a pizza perfume.
What?
There's a pizza perfume.
Uh,
Sniff has no noses, which they call it their secret menu perfumes. And they're all fantastic. I got all 5 of them because they're all so good. So my favorite of them is called Dead Dinosaur. And it's gasoline, but it's a wearable gasoline.
love it.
The pizza one is called Slice Society. There's Crumb Couture. Crumb Couture, I think, is the most well-known of all of them. It's a croissant with, like, jam.
Yeah.
But Dead Dinosaur is by far my favorite. I love it to death because I love the smell of gasoline. But it's like a wearable gasoline. Like, that's the only way to
Wow.
explain it. But Slice Society is the name of their pizza one.
That's very cool. I gotta smell it at some point. So, classic perfumery used benzoin as a base note binder. It's the unsung hero behind Guerlain, their fragrance Le Bleu, and the smoky glow of opium. But today, niche perfumers worship the shit. Okay. By Rita's Bibliothèque, benzoin drenched in stewed plum. Mason Margiela's By the Fireplace, that toasted marshmallow illusion, it's benzoin and vanilla, baby. Serge Luton's Amber Sultan, it's a resinous throne built on benzoin's back. So, benzoin has a rich history since antiquity of being used not only as incense, not only in witchcraft, but also in perfumery. And we love it. We still use it today.
Is there anything questionable about getting the authentic?
Not as far as like ethical concerns go, not that I'm aware of, just because it is a tree that is widespread. It's not like a sandalwood or like a food where it's over harvested, anything like that. I will say there is in my opinion, there's a pretty big scent difference. I actually have both synthetic and natural benzoin. So this is a benzoin olfactory reproduction by IFF. This is like straight up like honey sweet tea. Like it's very like vanilla-y. And this is a benzoin from Enfleurage in New York. It's a tiny little shop that sells essential oils, um, specifically for perfumery, which is cool. Perfumery and like aromatherapy. There's more of a kick to it. It's more, not that it's spicy, but you get more of that like leather nuance as opposed to just the like golden honey vanilla. It's a pretty cool material in both. That's why I have it in both, because it's like the differences are crazy when you really get down to brass tacks between them and useful for different creations. That's all I have for benzoin. I mean, it's a resin that's been around since ancient times. I can't wait to hear about a pop culture perfume that incorporates it, though.
And it's not Guerlain's Shalimar, because that's going to be for a completely different episode. What I will say about this episode before I start getting into it is that we're going to talk in 2 parts, kind of like we did for our Beaver episode, where I covered the perfumer and then I covered the brand.
Mm-hmm.
With this one, we're going to cover the brand and then we're going to talk about the seedy backstory to the fragrance. So this week we're talking about Prada candy. Did you know anybody who wore Prada candy?
Not that I recall. I can't even tell you what it smells like, to be honest.
So a lot of people, when I was reading like reviews and descriptions, compared it to Aquilina's Pink Sugar. So if you know Aquilina's Pink Sugar, people said that was like, that Prada candy is the grown-up version. So the first part of this is going to be about the brand itself. House of Prada was founded in 1913 by 2 brothers. So it was Mario Prada and his brother Martino. and it was originally called Fratelli, which is brothers, Prada, and it only made leather goods. This is going to be really important. Mainly handbags and travel accessories. What I also think is interesting is that they're based out of Milan, but almost all of their stuff is imported from England. And I don't think we always look at like England as an exporter of anything outside of colonialism, but apparently they were but they were exporting leather, particularly to the Prada brothers, who then turned it into handbags. In a moment of misogyny, Mario, who is the one who takes over the company of Prada, doesn't allow women to work for his company. So when his son doesn't want to go into the family business, but his daughter Louisa does, he has to decide whether or not to choose misogyny or hubris and keep the family involved in the company. I feel like those were a bunch of hot takes. Like, I was just coming out of it at the gate with, like,
wow,
you know, the woke liberalism with history. Louisa, his daughter, does take over in 1958. She runs the company for about 20 years, and in 1978, Louisa's daughter Chia Prada, I know I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but her name is kind of important for later. At the time, the company has sales of around $450,000, which when you do the inflation calculator is about $2.2 million in USD, which seems pretty low, all things considered. Because it is Prada, and Prada's been around at this point in time for several decades, and Miuccia is the third generation Prada.
Wow.
It is her who makes Prada like this well-known fashion house that it is today. Starting in 1983, they have locations outside of Milan and go more towards other notable fashion cities like Paris, like New York, and also Florence. They're known for having reduced branding. So they have Prada bags, they have Prada travel accessories, but unlike Louis Vuitton and Gucci, their logo is not part of their branding. It's very small, like the inverted triangle, but that's it on, say, a purse or the luggage. In 1992, Miuccia opens Miu Miu, which is her nickname, which I didn't know Miu Miu and Prada were connected.
I had no clue.
Right?
Whoa, that blows my mind. Holy shit.
So where Prada is designed to be kind of like the established luxury brand, Miu Miu is for young people and also celebrities. As many celebrities as they could get to wear their merchandise. In 1997, so less than 20 years after Miuccia takes over, Prada has a revenue of $674 million.
Sorry, say that number one more time.
$674 million.
Oh my god. That's sickening.
Just in 1997.
That makes me feel nauseous.
So, as we have known from other episodes, LVMH loves buying shit.
Yes, I do.
They love buying shit, and it's going to come into next week's episode, spoiler alert, LVMH buying shit. And in the 1990s and early 2000s, Prada is seeing LVMH buying stuff, particularly French companies. So Prada gets this great idea of, we're going to buy Italian companies, and we're going to be the Italian LVMH.
Okay.
So one brand that they do buy is Fendi, which ultimately they lost money on the deal. There are a few controversies at the time, but I love in my notes I put, but trust and believe that they do not compare to the ones that are coming up, because it's going to get so bad. It's going to get so bad. So recently, in 2025, Prada acquired Versace. So now Prada owns Versace and Fendi, and they're still trying to do the LVMH by luxury companies thing.
Well, I mean, Miss Girl did retire, so she was like, I gotta go. Do what you want.
Now the pivot is going to happen because Prada licenses its name to Luxottica for eyewear and L'Oreal for fragrances and cosmetics. So Prada does not own nor create any of their fragrances or their cosmetics or their eyewear. They just say, here you go, you could take our name and slap it on there.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm not surprised though. Like, ultimately, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, because we're going to get into licensing your brand. That's where we're pivoting. So,
Okay.
Prada Candy in particular was launched in 2011 around several other gourmand perfumes, mainly Aquilina's Pink Sugar. I rode that wave after the fact, when it was cool in like 2007. But my bestie Amber, when I was going in and stealing all the Cast a Spell by Lulu Guinness in Sephora, she was grabbing Pink Sugar.
Wow.
So my bestie Amber is solidly a Pink Sugar, but she rode the pipeline of Pink Sugar to Villa Juicy. We can also see the Pink Sugar to Prada Candy pipeline in some of the reviews, which I'm going to send you one of them.
My high school scent. Genuinely a lovely transition from the Bath and Body Works mist and the cheap dupes of Pink Sugar I'd find in pharmacies. Made me feel grown, but after actually growing up, I do find this one a little teenagery. Maybe it's because I'm biased. Very sweet, but not overbearing. Doesn't announce itself too much to others, but I could still smell it on myself, which I enjoyed back then. It's a safe blind buy and a crowd pleaser, but not a very unique gourmand.
Another review is sticky, syrupy sweet, but expensive smelling. This was my first big girl perfume. Bought in high school when I loved ultra sugary scents like Aquilina's Pink Sugar. Fades quickly, but that was probably a good thing for teenage me who loved to overspray. So we do see this kind of aspect, like you were saying in your portion about benzoin, how it is very sweet, very gourmand, very vanilla-y. And that also comes across in Prada's candy. The nose behind Prada Candy is Daniela Andreer. Does she sound familiar to you at all?
Yeah. How do I know that name?
Are you Googling her? Don't Google.
Don't Google? Okay. How do I know her?
Because she's made over 130 different perfumes.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
What are some of her heavy hitters?
Well, made perfumes for Bottega Veneta,
Okay.
Bulgari, Giorgio Armani, Gucci, Guerlain, Lancome, Tiffany, Valentino, and Yves Saint Laurent.
Wow.
She is the Tiffany perfume. She created that.
Okay. Okay. Now I understand.
She is born in Germany. In fun pivots, like many people in the fragrance industry, she studied at La Sorbonne, where she majors in philosophy before turning into perfumery. So, with the list of all of the perfume brands that she's created fragrances for, what do you notice about all of them?
Well, they are all luxury.
But they also all outsource their perfume manufacturing.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So they have no in-house perfumers. It's all outsourced.
Yep. With the case of Lancome, they are owned by a parent company, which is L'Oreal, but all of them just have their brand slapped on a fragrance. None of them have in-house perfumers. While I find it interesting that like a lot of Daniela's stuff is not well known, one thing that did come up is Daniela's husband, Giles Andreer. And does that name sound familiar to you at all?
It's that Andreer last name. I know it for sure. Who is Giles Andreer?
The CEO of Givaudan.
Wow. This makes sense. This all makes sense.
So, what can you tell me about Givaudan? Because we're going to talk about it.
Whoa. Well, I didn't do any research on it, so I can't give you.
You shouldn't.
Okay, good.
That's my job.
I know that I have some ingredients from them. They are like one of the top suppliers for aroma chemicals and like perfume ingredients. Yeah. So basically you have like Firmenich, IFF, Givaudan, there's a bunch of others. But yeah, they're like one of the big ones. I literally have ingredients from Givaudan.
As I think most perfumers do.
Okay, so what's the tea?
We're getting into the tea. There's so much. Now, we do not know if Daniela is an employee of Givaudan. That we don't know. But we do know she is a famous perfumer with over 100 perfumes under her belt. And also her husband just happens to be the CEO of one of the bigger perfume supply companies.
Surprise, surprise.
While I was researching this episode, there was literally a sentence of major competitors include Firmenich, IFF, and Symrise.
Symrise, yep. That's the other one.
We have mentioned both Firmenich and IFF in previous episodes, and
Yeah.
you mentioned IFF without me even prompting you.
Yeah.
Which I really love and respect, because you didn't even know I was going to talk about IFF and Firmenich and Givaudan.
No, I didn't.
So originally, Givaudan was founded as a perfumery and then opened up a perfumery school. So to teach other people how to become perfumers. They also immediately get into the business, kind of like what Coco Chanel was afraid of and what Prada was trying to do, of acquiring other businesses. One of the companies they acquire is which created the first outsourced fragrances by for a designer. So what I mean by outsourced fragrances, because I mentioned that before, is that unlike in our Chanel No. 5 episode, where Coco had a say in making Chanel No. 5 and Ernest Beau was the one doing like the tinkering, even though he already had Valet and that the Valet perfume and Chanel No. 5 are very closely related, it was Coco who was going in with the concept, the idea, and what she wanted of it. She continued to be part of the process.
Right.
It was also her own brand that was doing the marketing and the creating of the perfume up until she sold it to the Wertheimers, right? And that was like the big controversy of why she gets involved with the Nazis. However, when a designer has very little to do with the fragrance outside of possibly giving the okay to the final product and slapping their name on it, that's what I mean by outsourced fragrances. And that's what's going on with Prada Candy. Prada just said, all right, fine, yep, slap our name on.
Wow.
This is particularly ubiquitous in the designer fragrance game. If you really look behind the curtain on so many designer fragrances, they're just made by perfumers who work for IFF or Givaudan or Firmenich and are just creating something and then it gets outsourced to a brand. In the case of Ruhr, that outsourced fragrance is Schiaparelli's Shocking, was the first outsourced fragrance.
Wow.
Have you smelt that or no?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, I haven't either. Schiaparelli was just like, I want a perfume. And they're like, all right, here you go.
I know a little bit about their perfumes because of how cool their bottles always are, but that's like the extent of it. I've never smelled any Schiaparelli fragrance.
And that's kind of the thing that a lot of these outsourced designer brands are kind of going for is, okay, we have a little bit of a say in something, right? With Schiaparelli, it's, I want the bottle to be indicative of my brand, but what's inside the bottle, I don't really care about. And that's where these companies come in. I do want to cover 3 major controversies.
Let's go.
They're so bad.
Let's go. I'm so ready.
They differ in area of focus. I do think they are something you need to know when you do engage in the world of designer perfumes. The first is in 1976. So, as I mentioned before, Givaudan loves buying up little companies, right? A company under their umbrella called the Industrie Chimiche Media Society Azionaria, ICMESA, which translates to Media Chemical Industry Shareholder Company, had something called the Seveso disaster, which is considered to be Italy's worst ecological disaster.
Tell me about it.
So they released into the air tetrachlorobenzodioxin, which is also known as TCDD. And TCDD, if you don't know any of that chemistry, is a component of Agent Orange.
My God.
And for those of you who may not know what Agent Orange is, it was used in the Vietnam War and is known for both being a carcinogen, leading to leukemia, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and other types of cancer, as well as birth defects, both in Vietnam and in American veterans when they returned. Well, like their children.
Right.
When they returned. And as I was doing all of this research on chemistry, like the tetrachlorobenzodioxin, the United States government still denies any carcinogenic effects of Agent Orange.
That's crazy. Are you kidding me?
Yep. They're still denying that Agent Orange did anything.
Sure. It did nothing, and that was the whole point. Okay.
Yep. It does lead to a very big payout by Givaudan to the people of the town, which is Seveso. But yeah, you released one of the components of Agent Orange into the town.
That is insane.
The other one is fairly recent, but November of 2024, there was a chemical explosion, once again, in a subsidiary of Givaudan in Louisville, Kentucky. 2 workers died as a result of the explosion, and several more were injured.
Whoa. I feel like I remember seeing this on the news because it was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a huge deal when it happened. And it was like in a series of a bunch of different chemical spills.
There was the train.
Yeah. There were like 3 or 4 different chemical spills that like had all happened in the same like 6-month time period.
Yeah.
And the one that happened in November was in Louisville, and it was this chemical explosion under a subsidiary of Givaudan. So I do not want to defend this company, especially because we're talking about environmental impacts. We're talking about chemical explosions. Not great. But both of these incidences were like under the umbrella of Givaudan, which I do feel like do have as much control over them as you would say like a normal company that has like your name on it and is not some subsidiary. Like, at what point do all of these subsidiaries, do you like lose a little bit of your grasp on your company?
Oof.
So if you think leaking unknown chemicals in the air and hiding behind small subsidiaries is the only thing that Givaudan is doing, you would be incorrect. I also feel like we keep shitting on these companies, but like, stop doing sketchy shit and then I don't have to, give reports on you being sketchy. They are, of course, engaging in shitty corporate tactics that hurt smaller perfumers like you and me.
No.
You're so sad. It's bad, but it's like expected in this area of late stage capitalism.
Lay it on me. What's going on?
Beginning in March of 2023, Givaudan, along with Firmenich, IFF, and Symrise, have all been held under examination by both the EU and the US regulatory bodies for engaging in price fixing of fragrance ingredients. So they're all colluding and setting the standard of what the price should be.
Yeah, that's crazy. And honestly, I'm not surprised. I'm not fucking surprised.
I'm also not surprised.
Even before all of the tariff shit has been going on, prices for perfume ingredients have been going up through the roof. It's crazy. Like, I've been perfuming for a little over 5 years, and just in that small amount of time, I've watched something that I used to pay $4 for go up to $18. And it's like, it's a synthetic ingredient. What are we talking about? But I can't get it for cheaper anywhere else.
Because all 4 of them are working together.
Well, should have fucking known.
Court proceedings are still ongoing, But in February of this year, so a few months ago, a judge did refuse to dismiss the case against the companies, and that the class action lawsuit that was headed by both consumers and buyers is still allowed to go to trial. Editing Melissa here. I looked up all of the information for the class action lawsuit in order to give our listeners the information to get involved in it. Unfortunately, it seems as though they are no longer accepting individuals as part of the class action lawsuit. Found all of the information for the US, and all three of the law firms that are listed as being part of the class action lawsuit, and none of them have any information on getting involved. I did find it for Canada, but based off the analytics that we see of our listeners, we don't have a lot of Canadian listeners. Fun fact, our second highest country outside of the US is actually Ireland. So thank you, Irish listeners. We appreciate it. Kind of sucks that we can't get involved still, but we did look into it.
I'm exhausted. What the fuck?
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Oh my god. What a crazy episode. Holy shit.
Yeah, you thought it was just gonna be, nice. Oh, it's released by a tree. And then we're talking about Agent Orange. We're talking about price fixing.
Over here trying to light some incense and like get my vanilla vibes on, and you're like, terrorist, eco-terrorism. I'm like, what?
I feel like that's what I always do in all of these episodes. Every single one.
It makes it so much fun, and I love it.
You want to know this crazy shit these businesses were getting up to? Bam!
We're talking about civet cat sacks, Nazis.
Yes.
Oh my god. Horizontal women.
Horizontal women. Now that we are at the end of the episode, there is an announcement that me and B want to discuss with you, and that is that this episode is going to be one of the last for the summer. We'll be back probably in the end of August, beginning of September. But as a lot of you guys know, we do a metric shit ton of fairs.
Yeah.
I have a fair every single week from now until November 15. I have at least one, if not two. I am doing a bunch of cons and stuff like that. So we're going to be busy because we're going to be out there.
Jet setting. Busy. I love it though.
So because of that, we're not going to be able to like edit and research and everything. And we wanted to make sure that we give you guys a good, highly researched episode and not just some random shit that we put together. That being said, we have two big things that we're working on, but we cannot confirm yet. One of them is that we are currently in the process of scheduling a time to interview a brand that's currently being sold at Ulta. A lot of our perfumers in the past have been indie perfumers. So once that happens, we will release that episode within like a week or two of recording it. So is something you can look forward to over the summer. The other thing we are working on is a live podcast recording. Me and B are doing some Ren fairs together, and the Ren fairs have shown interest in us recording an episode IRL in front of people. So we are going to be working out like logistics and how we do that. But that could be real fun.
Could be cool.
Especially if we cover what perfumery was like in the medieval times.
Whoa, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, because it is a Renaissance fair, so we can definitely do that.
I'm going to have to make some enfleurage, some animal fat perfumes. Let's go. I can't wait.
So you have this episode, and then we have two more episodes that we're going to be recording and then releasing. Then we're going to be taking off for the summer. Unless we get the interview over the summer, we'll be releasing that
of course,
pretty quickly.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a blast.
Sillage and Sorcery is produced by Melissa Sifjardóttir and B. Sampson. Research conducted by B. Sampson and Melissa Sifjardóttir. It is written by B. Sampson and Melissa Sifjardóttir. Our logo was designed by B. Sampson. and it was edited fairly okay by Melissa Sifjardóttir. If you would like to check us out and support us in any way, you can buy our perfumes, which are linked in the show notes down below. You can also check out www.sillageandsorcery.com for merch, links to our brands, and all of the links to our other platforms. So if you're watching on YouTube and want to listen on Spotify, or are listening on Spotify and want to watch on YouTube, you can do that at www.sillageandsorcery.com. All right. We will see you in the next one. Love you. Bye. And since we're like YouTubers now, we could say the like and subscribe, leave a comment.
Yeah, like, subscribe, leave a comment, smash that like button, destroy it.
Put a chemical disaster on that like button.
No.
Have, your local town and municipality's worst ecological disaster on that subscribe button.
Join the class action lawsuit by liking that subscribe button. I just kidding. That's not how it works.
That's totally how it works. Isn't that how it works? That's what the YouTube analytics are telling me.